I stood at the back of the banquet hall, clapping as my cousin Eric received an award for Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Cameras flashed. My whole family was there, cheering, laughing, celebrating like they always do when it's not about me. But what shattered me wasn't just the fact that they never invited me to sit with them. It was the speech. Eric looked out at the crowd and said, "This idea started at a family barbecue when my Uncle David said something that just clicked. I ran with it, and the rest is history." But it wasn't David's idea. It was mine. I had written the pitch months ago and shared it naively in our family group chat, asking for feedback. Eric never replied. But now here I was, watching him soak in the applause for my work, while my own parents smiled from the front row. Have you ever realized, in one split second, that your own family was never rooting for you? Growing up, I used to think we were one of those tight-knit families you see in Hallmark movies. You know, backyard cookouts, matching t-shirts on family vacations, group prayers at Thanksgiving. My name is Amanda Taylor, and for most of my life, I believed the greatest blessing I had was my family. I was the middle child, stuck between my older brother, Kevin, the golden boy, and my younger sister, Melissa, the darling. Kevin was athletic and confident. He played varsity football and could charm the socks off any adult in the room. Melissa was soft-spoken and delicate, always the one being protected. And then there was me, bookish, creative, dependable. The helper. The planner. The one they called when the Wi-Fi broke, or when the birthday party needed organizing. But I didn't mind. Not back then. I thought that doing more meant being loved more. So I did. From folding laundry during sleepovers to tutoring my cousins in math, I was always trying to earn a spot that I didn't realize should have been mine by default. I remember one summer, I spent 3 weeks building a digital scrapbook for our grandparents' 50th anniversary. I stayed up past midnight scanning old photos, writing little stories beneath them, even coordinating with a local printer to get it bound like a real book. On the day of the party, my mom gave a speech and said, "We all came together to make this beautiful gift." No one mentioned my name. Not once. Still, I smiled. Because that's what you do, right? You smile and stay grateful. You tell yourself, they love me. They're just busy. It's fine. The truth is, when you're raised to serve instead of shine, you stop noticing when your light's being dimmed. But it wasn't always that way. I wasn't born overlooked. When I was little, I remember my dad used to call me his sunshine girl. I'd help him fix broken things around the house, passing him tools while he crawled under the sink or held wires together. He'd always say, "You're the smartest one of the bunch, Amanda. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." That voice echoed in my head years later when I started sketching business ideas in the margins of my high school notebooks. I was obsessed with solving problems. How to make grocery deliveries more efficient, how to help local artists sell handmade crafts online, how to connect single moms with each other for childcare swaps. By the time I was 24, I'd already built 2 micro-startups. Nothing flashy, but enough to get me noticed in my grad program and land a consulting internship. But even as I grew professionally, I never stopped trying to impress my family. At family dinners, I'd bring up ideas excitedly. What if we created an app for elderly folks who forget to take their meds? But the room would always go quiet. And then someone would change the topic. Or my uncle would chuckle and say, "Amanda's always dreaming big. You sure you don't want to marry a doctor instead?" Eric, my cousin, the one who later stole my pitch, was always there, too. He was Kevin's best friend growing up. Tall, smooth-talking, kind of lazy, honestly. But he had charm. And charm, in our family, often got you more than character ever could. Eric wasn't particularly ambitious. He failed out of community college, worked at his dad's car dealership, and once asked me to help him build a resume from scratch because he didn't know how to make one. I didn't judge. I spent a weekend revamping it, writing up experience he barely had to help him apply for a city grant program. I even coached him through the interview. He didn't get the job. But the next family cookout? He walked around saying, "Amanda's my career guru." And everyone laughed. I smiled then, too, because I still believed we were on the same team. It's wild, isn't it? How long you can play a role in your own life before realizing it wasn't your story to begin with. The slow unraveling started a year before the banquet incident. I had just wrapped a project at my firm and was feeling on top of the world. My mentor told me I had a natural instinct for innovation. You don't just think outside the box, Amanda. You redraw it. I came home glowing. I wanted to share the joy, the pride. I opened our family WhatsApp group, where we shared everything from holiday menus to baby pictures, and sent a long message. Hey, everyone. I'm working on a pitch for a small business startup challenge. It's still rough, but I'd love your feedback. The idea is a mobile platform that connects local artisans with buyers through customized storytelling. Think Etsy, but with a personal touch. Each product comes with a short video or story about the maker. What do you think? The message was seen by everyone. No one replied. Not my parents. Not Kevin. Not Melissa. Not Eric. 3 days later, someone posted a meme about overachievers needing to touch grass. And still I said nothing. I thought maybe they didn't get it. Maybe I should have called. Maybe I was the problem. That was my default setting. Blame myself, minimize, adjust. Looking back now, I see it clearly. The silence wasn't accidental. It was a choice. A pattern. A silent vote they kept casting without me realizing I was even on the ballot. The thing about family betrayal is, it never arrives like a burglar in the night. It seeps in through smiles, silence, and slights. It teaches you to question your gut and call it love. The first real fracture, the kind I couldn't explain away, came on a Sunday morning at my parents' house. It was Kevin's birthday, and Mom had invited everyone for brunch. I showed up early with homemade cinnamon rolls, his favorite since childhood. As I stepped into the kitchen, Mom barely looked up. "Oh, sweetie, we already have breakfast," she said, pointing to the bagels and lox from a local deli. "But I guess we can freeze yours." That alone didn't sting. It was how she said it, like I'd brought junk. Like effort wasn't welcome unless it was part of the plan. Kevin walked in 10 minutes later, dropped a plastic grocery bag with some store-bought cupcakes, and the whole room lit up. "You always think of the best desserts," my Aunt Carol gushed. "You're so thoughtful, Kev." I stood next to the sink, wiping cinnamon glaze off my tray, pretending not to hear. I'd been doing a lot of that lately, pretending not to hear. A few weeks later, I called Melissa just to chat. She picked up on the third ring, her voice whispery. "Hey, I can't really talk. I'm in a Zoom." "No worries," I said. "Just wanted to catch up." There was a pause. Then she said, "Are you okay?" "Yeah. I just thought maybe we could talk. It's been a minute." She hesitated again. "You're not in one of your moods again, right?" I didn't even know what that meant. I had just wanted to talk. We hung up quickly. But I couldn't stop thinking about that word, moods. Like I was unstable. Like needing connection made me needy. Then came the family vision board night. My cousin Laura was throwing a girls-only get-together, wine, markers, magazines. We were all supposed to bring quotes and pictures that inspired us for the year ahead. I brought a stack of printed quotes, a few copies of my pitch notes, and cutouts of women-led brands I admired. When I arrived, the room was already buzzing. Everyone had a spot. They'd started early. "Oh, Amanda," Laura said, rushing to the door. "I didn't think you'd actually come. We ran out of foam boards, but maybe you can just share mine." It stung. But I smiled. "Sure." I squeezed into a corner of the table and started cutting out a quote that said, "Build what they said you couldn't." Kevin's wife, Rebecca, looked at it and laughed. "Is this about that Etsy thing you posted?" My niece already tried something like that. No one wants to watch long videos when they're buying soap. I opened my mouth to reply, not argue, just clarify, but Melissa jumped in. "Bex, don't poke the bear. You know how Amanda gets when you question her vision." There was laughter. Just a ripple. Nothing cruel. But I wasn't laughing. They kept joking all night about dreamers, people who always need to be the smartest in the room, about how being too intense scares men off. I left early. Told them I had work in the morning. Sat in my car in the driveway and stared at the glowing windows for 10 full minutes before driving off. But it wasn't just social jabs. There were practical betrayals, too. One evening, I stopped by Mom and Dad's unannounced. I had just finished a call with an investor who was interested, genuinely excited, about the storytelling artisan platform I was building. I thought maybe they'd want to hear about it. I walked into the living room and found them watching TV with Eric. They froze. Eric smiled with that lopsided grin he always had when he was hiding something. "Oh, hey," he said. "Didn't know you were coming." I sat down, trying to ignore the weird tension in the room. "Just wanted to say hi. Had a huge call today. Might have landed seed funding." "That's great," Mom said absently, eyes on the screen. Eric turned to Dad. "Actually, Uncle Mike, I've been thinking about that thing you said. About storytelling selling better than just photos. I've got a friend who can help me record some short videos. Like mini-maker profiles. You think people would care about that?" My throat tightened. "That thing you said?" That was my exact phrasing from the group chat. I looked at him. "You're talking about your leather goods idea?" "Yeah," he said, casual. "Thinking of building a site for handmade stuff. Real local stories. Kinda like a boutique market, but online." Mom nodded approvingly. "That's smart. So many people love that handcrafted vibe these days." I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream. "You're describing my idea. Word for word." But I just sat there. Because how do you accuse someone of stealing something the family never believed was yours to begin with? That night, I texted Melissa. "Did you know Eric's working on a site almost identical to mine?" She replied 2 hours later. "LOL, maybe it's just the universe's way of saying it was meant to happen either way." The next day, I saw Eric's new Instagram account at Made Local Story and the tagline, "Every product has a soul. We help you meet it." It was my pitch deck headline. Word for word. I scrolled through the comments. Family members were hyping him up like he'd invented sliced bread. "Amazing idea. You were always the creative one. This is so you, Eric." I stared at my screen in disbelief. I wasn't tagged. I wasn't credited. I wasn't even remembered. I felt like I was watching a movie where someone else was playing my part, and the whole audience was applauding. That week, I stopped responding to the family group. I muted every thread. I even archived old photos that used to make me smile. But I wasn't angry yet. Not then. I was just stunned. I still thought maybe they didn't realize what they were doing. That they were just blind to how it felt. But betrayal isn't always cruel. Sometimes it's just careless. And that's worse. Because it means they never cared enough to notice. I didn't find out the full truth all at once. It came in waves, each one harder than the last. It started with a Facebook post. Eric's face was front and center, smiling in front of a podium at a local business expo. The caption read, "Meet the visionary behind Made Local Story, transforming the way we shop handmade." I zoomed in on the photo. He was holding a plaque. Innovator of the Year. Presented by the Mid-State Chamber of Commerce. The same chamber I'd pitched my idea to just 6 months ago. My heart dropped. My skin felt hot. I clicked on the event page. Scanned the panel list. And there it was, under the special thanks section. Amanda Taylor, Concept Design Advisor. My name. Not as a partner. Not as a founder. As an advisor. I hadn't even known he submitted a pitch. I called the chamber, trying to stay calm. "Hi, this is Amanda Taylor. I noticed my name was listed as an advisor for a project presented at your expo. I wasn't aware I was involved." The woman on the other end sounded confused. "Oh, you weren't?" Eric said you were part of the original development, that the platform idea came from a collaborative brainstorm between you two. He signed the release form. What release form? The panel submission. He listed you as a non-voting creative contributor. We assumed you were okay with it since your name was on his website as a testimonial. I opened the Made Local Story website. Scrolled. There it was, buried under the press section. Amanda Taylor, innovation consultant, early stage support. My own face. Cropped from a photo I'd posted on LinkedIn last year. A line from an email I sent Eric 6 months ago. "Let me know if you ever need support in getting your site up." I felt the blood drain from my face. I had been erased and then resurrected on his terms. He hadn't just stolen the idea. He'd rewritten the origin story and painted me as a footnote. I drove to my parents' house that night. I didn't call. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too hard. Mom opened the door in her robe, clearly surprised. Amanda? What's wrong? I walked in, clutching my phone. Did you know? She blinked. Know what? That Eric has been using my pitch, that he submitted it to the chamber, that I'm listed as his advisor on a project I never approved? Dad stepped into the hallway, frowning. Slow down. I turned the screen to face them both. Look. Look at what he's done. He's calling it his business. His vision. And you're all acting like I never existed. There was silence. Mom sat down on the armrest of the couch. Amanda, honey, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. Eric said you two worked on it together. We didn't, I said, my voice breaking. I shared my idea in the family chat. He ignored it. Then he took it. He branded it. And you're all clapping like it's some genius miracle. Dad crossed his arms. You never trademarked it, right? I mean, if it wasn't protected. I stared at him. Are you serious right now? I'm just saying. Maybe it was naive to share something that important without locking it down first. I backed away like I'd been slapped. That was the moment. Not when Eric copied me. Not when the chamber gave him credit. But when my own father blamed me for being too trusting. I left without another word. When I got home, I collapsed on my couch and cried until my face hurt. The next few days blurred. I ignored calls. Canceled meetings. I even missed a project deadline, something I'd never done before. I felt like I was losing my mind. I wasn't just betrayed. I was erased, gaslit, and repackaged. I tried to confront Eric directly. I sent him a long message. Clear. Direct. You took my idea and claimed it. You used my language. My words. You listed me as an advisor without my consent. This isn't okay. I trusted you. He replied 4 hours later. I'm sorry you feel that way. I thought we were collaborating. I never meant to upset you. No acknowledgement. No apology. Just that sickening phrase. I'm sorry you feel that way. I wanted to scream. A week later, my worst fear came true. I was in a Zoom meeting with a potential client, someone I had been courting for weeks. He looked excited. Hey, before we dive into this proposal, I just want to say, I loved your collaboration with Made Local Story. Great concept. You're obviously a powerhouse behind the scenes. I froze. Behind the scenes. That's what they thought I was now. A ghost in someone else's success story. I ended the call early, then stared at my reflection in the black laptop screen. Who was I now? I had worked for years to build credibility, trust, reputation, and in a matter of months, it had been rebranded into someone else's win. And the people who should have had my back? They were the ones smiling in the background of Eric's story. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, chest tight. I kept seeing myself at that banquet, clapping like a fool, like I didn't know the joke was on me. And somewhere deep inside, something snapped. Not the kind of snap that breaks you, the kind that wakes you. I sat up slowly, wiped my face, and whispered, You want to play games? Fine. Let's play. I didn't storm into battle. I didn't scream. I didn't post rants. I didn't beg for justice. I built my case like a storm gathering in silence. I spent nights combing through emails, drafts, chat logs. Every digital footprint that proved the timeline, my original proposal, my brand name drafts, my research decks, my outreach list to local vendors, sent months before Eric even registered his domain. I even dug up a voice note I'd sent him when I first pitched the idea casually, in hopes of partnership. I really think we could bring local artisans together with a smart platform that combines storytelling with commerce. It's got soul, you know? It's not just about the product, it's about the person behind it. That line? It was now word for word on his About page. I contacted a copyright lawyer, paid for an emergency consultation. She reviewed my materials and didn't hesitate. You've got enough to go after him, especially if he's profiting off the exact wording, layout, and vendor model you designed. It's not just an idea, it's execution. I nodded, feeling my first rush of true vindication. Then I got to work. But not on a lawsuit, not yet. That wasn't the revenge I wanted. I wanted to take back my name, my power, my idea. So I started rebuilding my original concept. But this time, sharper.
Cleaner.
I rebranded, changed the name, updated the messaging. No more warm and fuzzy pitches to people who smiled and nodded but never saw me. I created a sleek platform called Origin Thread, a space for makers and buyers that celebrated authentic ownership. I reached out to vendors, some of whom were already listed on Eric's site, and shared my story. Many of them had no idea he wasn't the original creator. Some were furious. Others asked how they could help. Within a month, I had 20 new makers on board and a feature lined up in a regional artisan magazine. But I wasn't done. I wanted my family to see. So I invited them all to my soft launch event, including Eric. I worded the invitation carefully. You're invited to witness the revival of the original idea, the one that started in our family chat. The one you thought wouldn't go anywhere. The one I built and rebuilt without your approval or permission. Come see what real ownership looks like. The event was held at a co-op gallery downtown. Modest, but stunning, with handmade displays, live demo booths, and a projector rolling through the actual timeline of my idea's evolution. I walked in wearing a black blazer, no frills, just intention. When Eric walked through the door with my brother and his fiancée, he froze. The wall near the entrance held a printed quote. They pretended to support me until I caught them signing me out of my own legacy. It wasn't just a dig. It was the truth. Eric kept looking around like he couldn't breathe. His face turned pale when he saw the timeline exhibit. My screenshots, my drafts, the dated documents, all printed and mounted, indisputable. He made his way to me slowly, hands in his pockets. Nice setup, he muttered. Thanks, I said coolly. It's mine. He gave a weak laugh. You didn't have to turn it into a spectacle. I didn't. You did that when you made me invisible. People started to gather, sensing the tension. Eric leaned in, whispering, You're not going to sue me, are you? I tilted my head.
Why?
Feeling guilty. He didn't answer. I could, I said. And I still might. But right now, I'm more interested in letting everyone see exactly who built what. In the light, where you can't edit the story. He opened his mouth but closed it again. Then, quietly, he turned and walked away, into the crowd, shrinking by the minute. That night, after everyone had left, I stood alone in the gallery. The lights were soft. My shoes echoed against the concrete floor. I looked up at the final panel of the timeline display, the one with a picture of me holding a coffee mug, sitting at my desk, smiling at a screen full of sketches and plans. The caption read, This is where the story began. Not in theft, not in ego, but in vision, and in belief. And now, no one could rewrite that again. Revenge isn't loud. At least, not mine. It was soft, precise, public in the right places, quiet in the ones that mattered. And it began the moment Origin Thread started gaining traction. It began with whispers. Articles featuring me as the local founder reviving artisan pride started circulating. I didn't pitch to tabloids. I targeted the right magazines. Trade publications. Micropodcasts. Word-of-mouth networks. My kind of crowd. And slowly, Eric's site, Art Echo, started to flinch under the pressure. It wasn't just that vendors were leaving. It was that his narrative was unraveling. I never had to scream. He stole from me. I just told my story, with dates, documents, and dignity. I gave interviews. Not dramatic ones, just honest. Yes, I had the original idea. Yes, I shared it within my family. And yes, someone tried to cut me out. But I'm not here for drama. I'm here to show what it looks like when you reclaim what's yours, legally, ethically, spiritually. People respected that. Some vendors even posted comparison screenshots between my old drafts and his current site layout. One vendor, Rosa, made a viral TikTok. This is my journey with both platforms. One founder actually called me, asked about my story, and helped me present it beautifully. The other one ghosted me after uploading my products without consent. You tell me who deserves my work. Her post racked up 700,000 views in 2 days. Eric tried to pivot. He changed Arteco's logo, updated the mission statement. But the trust? It was gone. By the second month of Origin Thread's launch, I had secured a local grant and formed a creative partnership with a digital marketing agency that used to work with Arteco. Turns out, the agency dropped Eric after he forgot to pay them for their last project. So when I came along with receipts, professionalism, and clarity, they were eager to work with me. We built a beautiful new campaign. From silence to spotlight. It featured not just my story, but the vendors' stories. The real creators. It went live on a Monday. By Friday, Origin Thread was trending in the Artisan Forward newsletter, a big deal in the indie maker community. Then came the best part. A prominent online retailer, Crafted Co., reached out for a potential collaboration. Their email read, "We've been following your story with admiration. Would you be open to exploring a featured creator series on our platform where you retain full branding and creative control?" I laughed when I read that line. Creative control. The very thing Eric tried to erase. I said yes. Of course I did. And then I got a second email from a law firm. Not mine. Eric's. They claimed I was defaming his business with false statements and creating unfair competition. I forwarded it to my attorney. She grinned, replied directly to them, and attached our packet of evidence. And it was everything: timestamps, original documents, pitch decks, screenshots. Even a notarized affidavit from one of the earliest vendors, confirming I had pitched the concept long before Eric went public. The law firm ghosted us after that. But Eric didn't. A few days later, I got a message request on Instagram. "Eric, I just wanted to say I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I didn't think you'd actually take it public." I stared at the message for a long time, not because I felt pity, but because I finally saw him clearly. He thought I'd roll over. He thought I'd stay silent. He thought the family dynamic, the years of being seen as the dramatic one, would keep me in my place. He didn't realize I was done shrinking. I didn't reply to him. Instead, I posted a new blog entry on Origin Thread titled, "Reclaiming the Story: Why We No Longer Ask for Permission to Exist." It opened like this. When your voice is edited out of your own creation, you don't fight back with rage. You fight back with clarity. You build louder, sharper, truer. And when the world sees the truth, not as a weapon, but as a mirror, that's when real justice is served. That entry was shared over 3,000 times in 2 days. Then came the last move, not from me, from Eric's investors. Apparently, he had silently taken loans from some of our distant family friends to get Arteco off the ground. Loans he now couldn't repay because vendors were pulling out and his traffic was dropping like a stone. One of them contacted me, asking for insight. I said, "All I can offer is what I know. The rest? That's on his choices." 2 weeks later, Arteco filed for temporary closure. Internal restructuring was the excuse. But we all knew the truth. The empire he built on my stolen bricks had crumbled. And Origin Thread was growing stronger every week. One night, after shipping out the first run of handmade journals by a local Appalachian artist, I sat in my small office, cup of tea in hand, and opened my site dashboard. Over 12,000 visits that week. Dozens of vendor applications. And a message from a woman who said, "Your story made me cry. I'm 47 and just now starting my own artisan project. Thank you for reminding me that it's not too late to reclaim your space." That was the revenge. Not the lawsuit. Not the article shares. Not even Eric's downfall. The real revenge was rising without begging, owning without apology, and becoming impossible to erase ever again. Sometimes I think about how close I was to letting it go, how close I came to swallowing my hurt, accepting the betrayal, and moving on quietly, because that's what women like me are taught to do. To be polite. To let the more powerful ones win. To convince ourselves it wasn't theft, just misunderstanding. Just bad luck. Just the way the world works. But that would have meant surrendering my truth. And truth, I've learned, is like a flame. Buried long enough, it can seem like it's gone out. but give it oxygen, it blazes back to life. I didn't fight back to destroy Eric. I didn't rise from revenge alone. I rose because my silence was choking me. Because watching someone else walk around in my skin, claiming my ideas, living my vision, made me realize how easily the world erases us when we let it. You don't always get justice in courtroom. Sometimes, justice is found in the quiet rebuilding. In the emails from strangers who say, "Your voice gave me permission to use mine." In the orders that go out to real artists, real vendors, who never had a spotlight until someone like you created the stage. In the knowing that your name, once removed from the credits, now glows at the top, not because you shouted for attention, but because you built something no one could ignore. To anyone watching this who has ever been cast aside, underestimated, or stolen from, I want you to hear me. You don't have to play the villain to win. You just have to stop playing small. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and fury. Sometimes it looks like opening your own door, writing your own name back in, and walking through life so completely, so confidently, that those who tried to erase you can no longer recognize the version of you that rose. And you know what? You don't owe them recognition either. What you owe is yourself. Your story. Your truth. Your next step forward. Mine was origin thread. Yours might be something still unspoken, still fragile, still waiting in the back of your mind. But I promise you, if you listened, if you nurture it, that dream will rise. And when it does, let the world see you fully, unapologetically. Because no one gets to own your light but you. Not anymore.